We welcome everybody. My name is KK Satarhara from Assam and part of this Northeast Water Group. So just for formalities, I again welcome all the participants, speaker and share to this first webinar series, Water Stories from Northeast India. Hereby, we are trying to give a big background about Northeast Water Talk and its relations to this Water Talk series. As we text in the flyer, as a background note, a group of people from Northeast come together in December 2019 at Guwahati to talk about issues related to the water in the regions, where we decided to continue as this existing group, as Northeast Water Talk groups, to talk, to discuss, to debate water issues related to Northeastern regions in future. It's also decided in that meeting to volunteer for some water stories from our respective areas, who all are willing to actually write the stories, especially on issues related to water from their area. As a result of that decisions, we, by overcoming all the pandemic challenges, we are able to coming out several exciting stories around the Northeast. With this web talk, we are going to present, 3 stories here, which will be continue every Saturday of the week. Hereby also, I like to introduce Mr. Mrinal Gohain, who is going to share today's talk. Mrinal Gohain is known to everybody, is known to us, and he is well known in the social and development sector in the Northeastern region, also in national and international arena. He is a postgraduate in life science, is close to nature. His strong feeling actually towards the social, developmental and environmental interests lead to him to shift his service sector from government to non-government sector. Actually, he is working from 2000 onward. Mrinal Gohain is currently working as a regional manager in ActionAid Regional Office based in Guwahati. He is continuously engaging with us, engaging with different discourse around development and environmental sector in Northeastern regions. He has contributed to various campaigns supporting the analysis of issues and strategic engagement with many groups. He has vast knowledge on global issues ranging from politics, history, religions, heritage to culture, etc. We are thankful. We are really thankful to him for taking this responsibility to share this today's talk. Thank you, Mrinal, for coming. And with this word, we like to hand over this session to Milanda. So, Minanda, welcome.
Thank you, Bhai, for, among other things, it's entirely my privilege to be actually chairing the session. I suppose every one of us will have to do this one day, because everyone is equally competent to be chairing sessions and speaking here. And I would like to thank Bhai and Ram and others who have really taken the initiative of organizing this series of talks. I'd like to see, it says webinar series 1, so let's have a lot more of these webinar discussions. Because I think what has also happened is that a lot has changed around us, hasn't it? If you go back to the 1980s or to 1990s, whoever is old enough here, is that I think we had a fairly, shall I say, a relaxed understanding of the situation, right? It was emotional, of course, but to a certain extent, it was more a personalized experience of the environment and how we were seeing it and what were our fears about it. But in the last 30 years, I think as this whole idea of development, growth-oriented development has taken hold in the country and also within our region, among our so-called political leaders, our bureaucrats, our business leaders, as they call themselves, I think the situation has become very great. The thought that was crossing my mind is that, if you go back to the 80s and the 90s, when we talked about water, it was generally about uh, the word very conveniently used by everyone was exploiting it. You know, you've got all these water resources in the Northeast and you need to exploit it. And to a great extent, many of us thought, yes, it's a good idea. Why not? You know, there's so much water around us. We have issues like floods. Um, and, you know, I think we can put it to better use. But eventually, I think some of us got thinking. And I think, and we started realizing very soon as we started talking and discussing about it, that, you know, there are major concerns. So it's not just about floods and flood protection or about power. That was the other thing that was talked about at that time. But there were really issues. How are, you know, people on the grassroots, people in the communities that we live in or work with, how would they be affected? And the more we started thinking about it and more we started talking about it, we started realizing that there is a very serious issue at hand. That was in the early 90s when many of us were talking about it, even as we are going out and trying to find solutions to the various challenges that floods are posing to people on the grassroots. And as we were engaging on floods, we started realizing that dams or embankments are not really an answer to the problem, you know, and that development will not come from dams and development will not come from embankments. In fact, they are exacerbating the problem. They are increasing the problems that we are seeing around water. Likewise, I think whoever has worked in the hills and looked at the various so-called water supply, you know, schemes, whether in Shillong or in Aizawl, we all started discussing these things. And all, whatever these guys are trying to do in the name of development, are they really helping people or are they causing more problems for everyone, right? So I think what has happened now in the space of the last 20, 25, 30 years is that our understanding on these issues have definitely deepened. You know, there's a wider cross section of people engaged around these issues. It's lovely to see some of the old faces here. I don't mean physically old, but people who have been around for a while, and also some new faces, right? And in fact, some of the new faces come with a lot of academic understanding of issues that perhaps some of us didn't have, a deeper understanding of issues, a deeper engagement, right? So I think collectively, all of us have a lot to say. It's about time. And perhaps we're already late because in the last 10 years have been the worst, really, haven't they? In the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a lot of change of the situation on the ground, and some of it is quite terrifying. It's not really about, I will not take too much time. I'll just say, give a couple of examples. Let's look at the wetlands in Assam. You know, a combination of dams along the upstream of the various tributaries of the Brahmaputra, for that matter, the Barak. World Bank projects in Assam that were started under the, you know, Agriculture Department and other subsidiaries have led to the killing of many of our wetlands, the so-called fisheries projects, as they call them, right? But I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, including the kind of deforestation that we are seeing. So those are things for discussion. And I'm sure the three speakers today, we have got three wonderful speakers today, tell us their stories. I think there'll be a lot more for us to actually get down to discussing and understanding. What I'm essentially trying to say is through these stories, the telling of these stories and the discussions, we will be able to build up a very strong narrative, around this whole issue of water. And this will, in all possibility, give us more direction as to what we need to do. But before I get any further, I'd request Dr. Ranjita Bonia. Ranjita Bonia is the first speaker today. She's a fisheries biologist and head of aquaculture, wetlands, and livelihood divisions of an organization called Jiva Suraksha, right? She has a PhD degree from Dibrugarh University, and she worked on something extremely interesting, something that's called hydrobiology and fisheries of Dibru-Soikwa National Park. Her area of interest is rivers, wetlands, climate change, and livelihood development through agriculture. So that's extremely interesting, and I'm sure that we will enjoy the story that she's telling us. It seems to be very interesting, and then maybe we can get back to answers. But basically, we'll have about 10 minutes per speaker, if it's all right. And once they have told us that story, we can get back to. We'll follow each of them without stopping for questions in between. We'll take all the three speakers one after another, and then finally come to questions for each one of them, right? But we'll get to that later on. So can we please start with Ranjita? Ranjita, if you're okay, can you please start?
Hello, everyone. I'm feeling very privileged to be the first speaker to tell a story of a tea estate. Water tale of a tea estate. Perhaps this is the first story from a tea garden of Assam where water issues are documented. The story started in a girl gang meeting where some of our girls were talking about the problems of water delivery systems in tea gardens of Northeast. And we found that the same problems are there in almost all the tea estates. So we don't know what kind of problems exactly are there, but we decided to go to a particular tea estate to see what is the problem there right now. Then Guwahati tea estate, a tea estate of eastern Assam, came to my mind, where I know a person who was a babu of the tea estate and a family acquaintance too. So accordingly, we decided to go via a train. The Guwahati estate is well connected by Morioni and Tinsukia via passenger train. So we decided to go via that, which cost us only 10 rupees. Kaka tu asli niki. Uncle, have you reached? I'm about to get it. I just called Jaslal Kaka, the babu, who walked in the tea garden, to make sure whether he is there to take us. True to his word, Kaka was waiting at the station to pick me up. The Guwahati estate is about a kilometer from the railway station, and we decided to walk and talk along. Guwahati is well connected, as I said. The tea estate was set up in 1880s and was under the Guwahati Tea Company's ownership. Kaka told. Now it is an amalgamated tea plantation, earlier Tata Tea Limited. Earlier, Guwahati was in undivided Sibsagar district. Years later, when Sibsagar bifurcated, it became a part of the newly formed district Saraideo. He briefly narrated a fascinating story of Guwahati. Once there was a salt mine about 10 kilometers away from the garden at Naga Pahar, which is in Nagaland right now. So the Nagas come down to collect salt there, and they sell this salt in a market near a pond called Raja Pukhuri. So what they did is that these people, after selling their products, they buy stuffs from the local market, especially the tea leaves. Those Highlanders used to halt for the night at the resident's house. They travel back next day only. A thriving barter system was acceptable between the hill folks and the people of the plains. This exchange of goods and produces used to do with the host families whose houses they would spend the night. Over the years, a weekly market came up, and it is shifted to another place. As locally, Bor means big and Hat means large. So this is how the name Guwahati came. While traveling, we saw the signboard, Guwahati Estate, Kaka announced. The famous historical road, Dhudorali, goes through the state, connecting Golaghat to Jaipur in Dibrugarh. The Ahom king Gadadhar Singh commissioned the construction of this road around the year 1687. It was named Dhudorali because the king had employed dhuds. Dhud in Assamese means lazy, dhuds to construct the road. It was lovely April morning, and it looks all green surrounding us. What a serene place, I exclaimed. Kaka offered a pale smile. It's all right on the surface. I'm surprised. What is wrong under the surface? I couldn't help myself and asked. No, nothing new. Time has flown by, but things have not changed as expected. Since the 80s, people of the state have been collecting water supplied by the garden authorities twice daily, morning and evening, in a dirty water tank pulled by a tractor. Now we are in the year 2020, but the same practice continues. You will see how the crowd fight over water. So it's water you are talking about. Water, yes, indeed. We stopped at Darika Banya's place, a well-known family in the locality. Darika Banya is no more. We met Tussa Banya, his daughter-in-law. Tussa is around 60 years old. I asked her about the water situation here in the state. My family used to fetch water from the single water tank provided by the garden authority each morning and evening. But after the retirement of my father-in-law, who was a sardar in the garden, we were denied the supplied water. She told us the daily water supply is usually meant for the permanent workers' families. They are entitled to get water first. Others can collect if some more water is left in the tank. Nobody could imagine our plight at the period. They objected that none of our family members was any longer an employee of the garden. So we cannot avail facilities of the garden, especially water, the life-sustaining gift of nature. It must have been challenging for you. I tried to console her. Water, yes, indeed, she explained. Bhagavan aheno, there's God, you know. I looked at her eyes. I came here in 1979. She began her story. My father-in-law, Darika Babu, was a sardar of this garden. Generally, the females of the family would go to fetch water from the water tank. We had our tubewell at my father's place, and we never had to go out for water. When I came here after my marriage, I experienced acute water scarcity from November to March for the months, or the monsoons was sour. Of course, we had a ring well here, but it would dry up very early, say by the end of October, and after that, our misery would begin. So you imagine a newly married woman standing in a queue for fetching water from a pani tanki. It was a different experience. It was so embarrassing for me. I have to do always this kind of thing in my father-in-law's place. Anyhow, I got used to that, but the problem didn't end here. I couldn't keep the house clean, couldn't wash my utensils properly because of the acute water shortage. At first, it was just unbearable for me. Gradually, I learned to cope up. I noticed a group of students stopped by in front of her gate. This is just to take water from a tubewell. Tussa Banya said, of late, my husband Jagannath Banya became a teacher. He managed to install a tubewell in front of the house. We could have set up it in our backyard also, but we thought others who needed water could have access to it too. After all, we were on the same boat. We decided to take a quick tour to the tea estate. The systematically planted tall cerise trees. Cerise is a rain tree, have added beauty to the green bushes, besides providing shade to the tea plants. When we walk around, we saw the nalas, the channels. The channels are filled with water, and some of the persons, they were washing their utensils, which were used, drums actually, which were used to spray medicine to the tea leaves. They were washing it there. I sounded an alarm. Kaka was angry too. Ki khate dhusi? Why you are washing it there? It's bish, it's poison. Don't you know that? They laughed. Dhule kono nai habe. Nothing will happen. One of them just tried to downplay the alarm. It was nothing to argue with them. So we walked ahead. Kaka appeared truly upset as he continued to mutter, the insecticide will pollute the water and kill all aquatic life as well as harm animals, which may drink this contaminated water. Moreover, during the monsoon, people go for fishing in the nalas and the paddy fields located amidst the tea gardens area. He said. Fishing usually using all kinds of intricate indigenous traps, mostly made up of bamboo and cane, is one of the favorite pastime for all, men, women, and children. In the rainy season, nalas get filled to the brim, and the paddy fields are inundated. But now the quantity of catch is much less, we have learned. As we walked by, we crossed a big pond. This is a community pond in the garden, and it is the only source of drinking water, Kaka told me. It was possibly dug during the British period, but it's not adequately protected now. The pond was not fenced even. Besides, water is also delivered through water carriers daily to other locations where piped water is not available. He said, the water is not treated for or filtered. At least I have not seen. I have never seen this pond being ever clean in my 40 years of experience in the tea garden. We entered Borhat Ali, a small pub, and stopped in front of a house to chat with a man called Victor Dumdum, whose wife is a permanent employee in the same tea estate. I felt a smell. I saw a small group of women passing by, carrying botuas filled with water. They must have collected water from the nearby pani tanki. A woman entered the house. She was wearing a rustin sari, which has turned almost red due to high iron content in the water. Her pot was not covered with any lid. I noticed none of their pot had a lid. I wonder why they were carrying water without covering. Victor laughed. What will happen? They always bring water in this way only. Before I could respond, my attention got diverted towards a gust of loud laughter and cacophony of some yelling children. A few of them were blowing their noses, while some were scratching their body. All of them looked weak and frail, but they were cheerful and happy. Kaka perhaps understood my concern. These children face different types of physical problems at different points of time. Most of these are water related, and due to poor personal hygiene, their parents don't have time or enough water to keep them clean. Moreover, most families don't have easy access to safe and clean drinking water. They also lack awareness. It's only at schools that the children learn something about the personal hygiene and the importance of covering cooked food and drinking water. Meanwhile, we reached Alfred's house, one of Kaka's best friends. He wanted me to meet. Alfred's son walks in the garden. Alfred's wife, Mariam, was waiting for us. She showed us the way to the washroom. The small makeshift structure was erected with 4 bamboo pillars covered by a few empty rice bags, served as 4 walls of the toilet cum washing space. After washing, we sat on the stools in the courtyard. She offered us some refreshment and tea, and while we were having tea, 4 women came in with botuas to get water from the tube well. The water vessels had no lid again. Mariam spoke of ignorance and lack of awareness among the women and people in general in the garden about sanitation and personal hygiene, including menstrual health. The water crisis makes it worse, she said. Sometimes we had to stay dirty. She paused for a bit. I saw the working women facing more difficulties. They had to go to work even during their menstrual period. They cannot even take any break to change their clothes during the 8 hours work. When they reach home, they may not have proper wash of their body or clothes because of lack of water. Don't they use sanitary pads? I interrupted. She laughed aloud. This is out of question. Pads are not used even at present. Then these women use old discarded clothes and they still practice the same because most of them are not aware of its benefits, and besides, many cannot afford to buy the modern disposable sanitary pads. I am ashamed of myself in 2020. We are in 2020 and women don't know how to use or why to use the sanitary pad. But why don't you cover the drinking water? I pressed my response. She admitted that illiteracy Lack of awareness, poor hygiene, and sanitation among people in the tea gardens were the main reasons for prevailing sickness and rampant disease like cholera, diarrhea, dysentery, etc. So Mariam said untreated water delivered by the Garden Authority was one among the main problems. Even the water carriers used to supply water to the workers are very old and seldom cleaned. Residents try their way to purify water for drinking purposes. They boil water with tea leaves and keep it for cooling, usually served as normal drinking water. A pinch of salt is also added. She explained. So I think education and public awareness is the only way to deal with these problems. It will take time, maybe a lot of time. So that's all about the story. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a beautiful story. I think it brings in so many different elements. It brings in the whole question about how corporate exploitation of workers have been happening over time. It talks about how groundwater has been slowly disappearing. It talks about how possibly deforestation in the area and replacement by plantations is causing certain kind of problem. So it's a beautiful story. And I think you're also touching on very important issues, the day-to-day issues of hygiene, of safe drinking water, of pollution of water sources that we have. So it's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful contribution to this series. I think the stories that are going to come out of this one. And Ranjita, we would love you to share this, the story. I suppose Pai will be facilitating that, sharing it among all of us, so that we can give you some, at least the first line of feedback. Then I can already see a complete story, but we can always improve here and there. But thank you so much. It's been our privilege entirely. Shall we come to the next speaker, Paul Andy Kalkungor. So Paul is a graduate of St. Anthony's College. He's worked with several media houses in the past, and was associated with the Don Bosco Museum in Shillong. I mean, the one that many of us from the Plains go up and and cause, I suppose, issues of resources. But he's worked with the Christian Broadcasting Network in New Delhi. And interestingly, he has come back to do something that I had done as well, with a lot of pleasure in the past. He's set up a restaurant in Shillong in 2016. And now he's doing something even more interesting. He's doing like someone else that many of us know. He's being engaged in livestock farming. And just before the actual discussions, the formal proceedings started in this webinar today, he was talking about the challenges of, that he's facing because of the pandemic. So Mr. Paul Andy Kalkungor is going to speak on the memories of what he's calling spring water. Wonderful story, I'm sure. Please, can we listen to you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mrinal. And I thank the Northeast Water Talk for giving me this opportunity where I can relive my memories as a child, because I'll be going back to the memories where I used to enjoy water. But before I go ahead, let me ask you, how many of you purchases water for drinking in spite of having a water connection at home? Oh, okay, we have something common. So there's many of us. So even me personally at home, we buy water almost every second or third day. We do have a water connection, but we do buy water because the water is not sufficient. The water coming out from the taps is not sufficient. But when I asked my mom, so I was asking that day, Mom, can you tell me how's the water condition right now if you compare with 60 years ago? And what she says is, you know what? Right now the water is so convenient. It's so easy. If I compare with 60 years ago when she was 10 years old, now it's so easy. Just a phone call away and you have the water tanker at home. I said, wow, really? When people all around there are talking about scarcity of water and they are talking about the water crisis, we out here, we don't have anything as such. Water is just a phone call away. Then she goes on and tell that when they were kids, her friends, her sisters, they would go around all around the locality to fetch drinking water from the nearby springs and the nearby shallow wells. And if they are lucky enough, if the owner, because these are mostly private owns, If the owners permit them to take the water, then it's good for them. Otherwise, they'll have to travel 1 to 2 kilometers just to get a bucket of water. But most of the time, where we fetch the water is a spring nearby our home. It's called the Pung Moina. Pung as in well, and Moina is a bird. Maybe there were many moinas, many birds around that area, which I don't see it now. So that's why they give the name Pung Moina. So this is the main water source, main water drinking source for us right from that time. That was 60 years ago. So we get our drinking water from here, but for washing clothes, we still have to travel to nearby streams. Our place is covered with streams. I think 60 years, most of the places are covered with streams and springs. So even our place as such is covered by the streams. And the two most important streams for us is the Wa Umpling and Wa Mrsyang. So Wa Umpling, it's a beautiful stream. You know, you have these cut valleys where you have lush green trees and you have wildflowers growing around and a clear water passing through. These are swimming destinations also, because there used to be a kind of a pool and there's a sand on the shore. It's just like a beach, though during that time we have never been to a beach. So that was a kind of a beach for us, you know, a very nice place. But the compelling memory about this Umpling or this stream, it's not the beauty of it. For me, it's the escape from a tragic accident 30 years ago when I was around 9 or 10 years old. My helper had taken me and my nephew for washing clothes, and me and my nephew, we wanted to swim. So we had gone into water and started swimming. So my nephew, being a good swimmer, he went to the deeper side and I stayed on the shallow part, maybe waist below depth. So I was trying to swim there. And suddenly I was yelling, oh, I can swim now, I can swim now. But in fact, I was not really swimming. I was just crawling under the water. And the next time I realized, like, I could feel my head paining. And when I opened my eyes, like, I saw my nephew pulling from my hair and taking me out from the water. I don't know for how long I was inside the water. He said I was sleeping inside the water. I didn't know about that. So that memory, I think it will go down with me. But let me quickly share with you the stream which I was talking about, the Wa Umpling, where we go and, you know, we go and swim, which is covered by trees. Okay, this is the stream at the present day time. So what I was talking about is all these areas were all covered by trees, by wildflowers. And the situation now is you have all the houses with urbanization. You can see that we have houses right across everywhere. So the pool which I was referring to when I said that there used to be a pool where we go swimming and it's a beach kind, you know, this is the area. This used to be the pool where all the guys, we would go and swim there. And after that, we go around the sands. And right now, beside the water, you can see a house being built out there. And this area where I was drowned, this is the area where I was drowned. I was about to be drowned, and which right now, even if you want to be drowned out there, it's not possible because there's water. It's been reduced to a drain, and the water is fully polluted with sewage flowing all over. So that's the state of the water, which I'm emotionally attached for so many years. And I think this is a result of our urbanization, where people are pushed into the limits and they have to cross paths with nature and fighting for survival, whether the nature will survive or the people will survive. So this is the result. And right now, everything is polluted around in that area. But coming back to my mom, the good news is my mom, when she during her time when she was 10 years old, she experienced her first water pipe connection in the late 1970s, the connection scheme from the PHE department, the government of Meghalaya. So everyone were excited, like everyone got a new connection and everyone was so excited. They don't care what kind of water comes out, though what they remember is just a red muddy water. But still they're all very happy because they have a water connection at home. But the bad news is, even during that time, when they had a water connection, they still had to buy water. So the amount of water that they buy is around 2 tins. You have these mustard oil tins of 15 liters. So 2 tins of that we get for around 1-2 rupees. So that's how we buy our drinking water. So even that time, the water was still scarce. But when my mom says that it is convenient right now, then in the days in the past, I could really connect it with her, because right now we don't have to travel to far-flung places, far-flung areas. We don't go looking around for water from our neighbors or anywhere. We just need to make a phone call and we have the water right at our doorstep. And the amount of the amount of tanker, which is an 1800 liters, just few months, 2-3 months back, it was 300, but now it's 350. So just see the demand of people buying water in Shillong city has really increased. So that's why they've come up with a new price. So with passing time and the population of our locality, like overall, it's increasing. So with an attempt to meet the demands of the residents of the locality, the local darbar, that is the local governing body, they came up with a suggestion that they should go ahead and start having bore wells in different parts of the locality. So there was excitement all over. That was around the 1990s. So everyone was excited. I was one excited youth at that time, because the moment they finished installing the pump, I would go there every night and start pumping water. Not really for pumping water, it's kind of trying to exercise my body as well. So maybe I overdid with the pump, or I don't know what. After just a few, I know the duration, but it was not too long that all the pumps they stopped functioning. There was no water, they stopped functioning. And till today, those pumps are still there, but with no water. It's just left unattended. So with Mr. Mrinal said, in the past 10-15 years, we have seen the rise in population. So even out here, it's the same thing. In the last 10-15 years, there's so much development, businesses, construction everywhere. Even a small locality, there's so much, like hospitals coming up, guest houses, schools, restaurants, car wash, flats. Now they have flats all over. There's a rise of everything. So just one connection, I know it's not enough for everyone, for every household. But some business, they needed more water, like a hotel out here. Just one connection would not be enough for them to run a hotel, because the hotel would consume more water than any others. So what have they come up with? They came up with a solution that they would go ahead and start drilling the underground water. So at this point of time, there was a protest from the residents. That was in the year 2015. But before going to the protest, let me just quickly go to the history of the water policy in our locality. Because after the bore wells failed, just a few years, the local governing body has put a blanket ban all over the area that no one is allowed to drill the underground water. So there was a complete ban. This was to safeguard the environment and to safeguard the spring waters that has been there for so many years to serve us. But again, in 2015, when these hotels started drilling, so all the people had come out on the streets. They've come out to protest against the authority, to protest against the hotel, that why are you drilling the water? But in fact, they were directly fighting with the government, with the authority who has given them the permission. In this case, it was the deputy commissioner and the expert committee. So I think everywhere in Northeast, do you have an expert committee, Mr. Mrinal?
We have
Yes,
committee.
Yes, we have the expert committee who surveys the land and who approves that okay, the water will be drilled. So our local darbar, they were fighting with the expert committee, they were fighting with the deputy commissioner, and finally the drilling was stopped. That was the end. But I was not part of the protest at that time because I was still in Delhi in 2015. But in 2019, the drilling started again in the same hotel. So, but this time the darbar did not say anything. And at this time, I had just relocated from Delhi 2-3 months back. So I just gathered a few locals from the locality, and we had gone to the Darbar to meet the members. So out there, I just wanted to get an insight, more insight as how did this happen? Like, maybe they are not aware that the people have started drilling again because they are quiet right now. So finally, after all this, the hotel, they went ahead with the drilling of water, and then there was no ban for them, because the local authorities said that it's for the community service where the people will be shared, the water will be shared with them. But till now, there's no, as such, there's no water sharing, because we still buy water, we still call our tankers, and we still have less water at home. But the thing is, what I say, like everyone is talking about scarcity of water. What I say is, in fact, I cannot say Meghalaya should be a scarce water state, because we have the heaviest rainfall. So if I say that we are running short of water, that will be very wrong on my part. But I would say that there's uneven distribution of water. Water is there, but it's not channelized properly to our homes, maybe to our residents, to where we need it. It is more like uneven. You see some parts, they receive lots of water, and some other parts, they don't receive any other water. So we all know what the causes of the water problems and all. We all know the causes, the mismanagement, construction, urbanization, and we also know the solution for it. But still, we are always discussing. We see the authority concerns, they are always discussing. So I hope that in the near future, we already know the problems, we know the solutions, so we should start acting. And before all our water is reduced to the water which I'm attached to when I was small, like the Waumpling is just reduced to drains right now. I hope that the existing streams or whatever it is, they should, they should take part and try to save it before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. It evoked all kind of memories for us. All of us have seen something like that. I grew up in Shillong and in Fishdale, so very similar story with that same, same experience of how the place where we used to swim and we used to get so much of our water from the Malki forest actually disappearing before us, right? And then everywhere I can see a comment being made by one of our friends from Sikkim. He's talking about, I think, similar things happening elsewhere. But we'll come back later, and I'm sure we will get your story as well to share among everyone else, both the recording as well as, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you at the end because of the time factor. Just when it was reaching, peak suspense point, I think, but we'll get back to it later, right? Thank you so much. Shall we get to Ram now? Ram really needs no introduction. Ram Wangke Rakpam from Manipur, but he's more than just that. He's someone who has been very actively engaged with the fisher folk around the Loktak, and someone who has been a motivator of people. He's been a connector of people, of activists, thinking people across the Northeast, actually, and way beyond, connecting with people, deprived communities, marginalized communities all across. And in recent times, of course, he's kind of kept his focus around the Loktak and communities living there. So Ram, the field is open for you.
The story that I have for you all today, picked up a village called Kangshim village. This is in one of the districts called Chandel district in Manipur, towards the Burma border. Kangshim is close to me in the sense that Kangshim is a village which is by the Asian highway. It used to be the road towards Burma, built by the British during the World War II. Then it became a National Highway 39, and now it is renamed as Asian Highway. And Kangshim is a small village, somewhere in between Imphal and Burma, in between. So it's about 1 hour from Imphal. And Kangshim village is populated by one tribe, nobody else but Oipu. Oipu is the name of the community, the indigenous community. Also, they are known as Khoibu, which literally means the owner of the bees. And Kangshim, the Oipu people, there are about 2,000 population left. The total population of all Oipu people is about 2,000. So it's a very threatened indigenous group. And almost half of the population of the Khoibu people live in Khangshim village. It's near the highway now. And so it has access to many things that the highway offers. So, and we'll be talking about Khangshim. The reason why I went to Khangshim was because they invited me. The chief of the village invited me. The organization and some of the elders invited me because they had a problem. The problem was, and still is the Asian Development Bank, which is funding the construction of the expansion of the Asian Highway. The village protested against the siting, the labor camps and the main camp for the workers and the machineries, and all of that things are going to be done for the construction of the highway. And they made a complaint to the ADB. The ADB visited, the team from Manila came, and all of that. The reason, of course, was water. And the dust, of course, the dust that will come from the work and the many other problems, but mainly the water, because there's a stream that comes to the village, near the village, that fits the agricultural land, that fits the village, that is going to be destroyed, and they won't be able to access this water, and that is currently happening. So that's the reason. So how do we deal with the ADB? How do you deal with the highway? That was one problem, and that's how I went there. So I thought maybe we should look at the water. Whenever people like me, when we go to activists to different places, water. I think by writing these many stories, I found that water is like the connecting thing of everything. When you go to some place, a dam issue, it's of course the water, the river, but also the water of the village, the future of the. So for Khangshim, it was not about ADB, it was not about a hay, but about the source of water, the source of life, and that connects the village to the mountain, to the valley, to the agricultural cycle, all of that. So I went to Khangshim, and Khangshim, the story is, I want to cut it short, not take too long, maybe open up for questions later. So I said Oipu and very threatened indigenous people group, and they fear that they will lose their language, they will lose their people, slowly dwindling. And so they have many fears. And they have to defend themselves at any cost and all the fronts. One thing that I found out when we talk about, when I went to do this story, is that water was a problem, is a problem. And this I found across many, many villages. And for a small village like this, there was an issue of access to water. There are wells there, few wells. In fact, I have a friend from here, from the Tata Trust. The Tata Trust also built 3 wells during the 90s, late 90s, around that. And so there were wells and there were ponds. The ponds were replaced by the wells because of course, but the ponds were also drying up. So the wells came in. The access to the wells was also a problem because there's small fee just for maintenance and all that. So who can access that depends on the fees that you can pay. But also it's not just the wells get dried up also. So when the wells get dried up, the richer people in that small village who has some access to money, they also buy water in that small place, not just in Shillong, as Paul was talking about, not just in Imphal or in other places, but even in villages like this. And, it costs much more than what the Shillong people buy. It costs like, almost like for a 12,000 liters, 1,300 rupees in that small village. And there's no other way but to buy the water from nearby towns, so there are always suppliers like that. So even in villages, access to water is also defined by, the richer people who has access to it. And so then the relatives of the richer people, they go to them just because and they get nearer to them because of the water issue. Because they can have access to water. So in most villages in Manipur, and particularly in the hills, there are no access to tap water. There's no tap water. There's spring water, there is a well, there are some of these rivers, So those are the main kind of sources of water, rain and sometimes rainwater harvesting during the rainy days. In this village, the government wanted to build, in the upstream, in the upstream village, they wanted to build a scheme was there to build a water tank so that from the tank, the water will be supplied to this village. But the village in the upstream refused. And then this has happened in many places, including we have read stories from Kohima and all that. Upstream villages are refusing to give you water because they also have problem upstream. And there can be many other factors too. Some water conflict, upstream and downstream water conflict was also visible when I went there. So that particular tank failed. So there's no tap water. So there is well water, there's rainwater harvesting, there's tankers that come and supplies your village, your requirements. Then you have the stream now, which is the biggest threat that is happening. I was talking about the stream when I started. I was talking about the labor camps and the main camp of what the ADB funded highway. And that is destroying the river, the water system, and that is an alarming situation in the village. The struggle is going on. They are not able to voice now so vocally because of many factors which I cannot disclose it here. But I've indicated that in the story. But that's where the crisis is, and the village is really reeling. When there's in winter time, that's the main problem. And so in many villages, winter time is where the women, and I think the women factor comes into the picture, the gender picture comes into picture, what Ranjita was also talking about, women and water. So here also we see, that winter is what they fear. Women, when we speak to women, when I speak to women, they fear that winter is coming because water will be scarce and they will be the one who will be tasked to go and fetch water, find water. And if you have money, of course, as Paul was saying, it's a phone call away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. And I think, like everyone else, you've touched on that very important aspect of how, let's put it this way, how government, how modern or contemporary development understanding, as led by organizations like the World Bank and the ADB, comes into conflict with people's actual needs. Whether in Shillong or in a tea garden area or in a city like Guwahati or where you're speaking about in Manipur, how people are being deprived of water, the most essential human need, right? Water is being denied to people who need it, right? It's something that we must talk about. But nevertheless, let's get to questions. If anyone has any questions, I'm just opening it up.
I don't have a question. It was great listening to all three of them. So I just want to share one success story to all of you here. As I live in a place called Chungthang, which is where the dam of 1200 megawatt Tista hydro project has been built and is commissioned. So last year, 2017, I filed an PIL because the dam water was a source where all the toxic waste were getting accumulated. All around, both the rivers were flowing, and since the volume was high, there was not much of accumulation of waste and toxic material for the matter. But once they completed the dam, every morning we could see all the waste on the dam. So then we filed a PIL in 2017, and just recently with a very active intervention of the Honorable High Court of Sikkim, the central treatment plant. In a sense, through a judicial process, we have convinced, or rather made the Government of India to sanction a sewage treatment plant to control toxic waste in the dam in North Sikkim. So it's a success story which I wanted to share with you. Total money sanctioned by Government of India is 18 crore. An additional 12 crore will be sanctioned by the Government of Sikkim. So to build a septic sewage treatment plant, they have sanctioned almost 30 crore rupees, which is a result of an PIL in the Honorable High Court of Sikkim. So I thought it would be good to share to all our friends who are fighting for our rights that we are getting success in this line also. Thank you.
Thank you, Sita. always a pleasure to
Yeah,
hear
that's all.
your work.
Yeah.
And I think that's something lovely that we're hearing. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mrinal. Actually, I don't have any question. Yeah. I don't have any question, but I'm really touched by this initiative wherein these stories are coming up, and I think that this would go forward, and we will be able to listen more of such stories. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
Thanks, Uttam, for a very quick observation, comment. Yes, Arif.
But it was wonderful listening to Ranjita and Paul and Ram also. So it was very interesting to listen many stories, and I remember the stories of tea communities, especially how badly they are suffering because of the water crisis. And I'm looking forward for many stories, many more stories. And at present, I'm doing some study on the kind of flow changes in the Upper Assam, especially in 7 spots, especially in Desang River, the kind of flow that is taking place in the last 17, 20 years. And I'm also looking after the flow variation in the Buri Dihing River in different spots like Namchik and in Margherita, as well as in Senijan area, and Tippling River and Tingrai River. In these rivers, I'm trying to look into the kind of changes scientifically. I'm trying to study, find out the changes of discharge in these rivers in the over a period of 20 years time. And I will also bring out some, story on that very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Arif. Thanks. Anyone else, please?
I just wanted to appreciate what Chitan Anand was saying. So that's it. No questions from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll go back to Hemanta. Hemanta, please.
Okay, good evening. Hello, everybody. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, actually, all that nice stories and whatever they're sharing, this it gives a very important point like that. No, but whatever Dr. Ranjita Bania ma'am shared, like whenever she got married and like that, no, whatever that scarcity of water and the lack of water in water tank, all that thing. I'm working in Majuli, so it's like basically in river like platform area. So basically, whatever they are, whatever that particular community, like missing community or whatever platform areas. So basically, water is here, but whenever they get to fresh water or something like that, they have to suffer. And for example, in case of like for fresh water, they have to fight for like whatever like in like hand pump or something like that, it goes down like in flood time, basically, especially in flood time. So one side it will be like a scarcity of water, another side is too much of water, but you can't assess that water on proper time and in good way. So in that way we can make one story on like that. Like water is too much, but we can assess those water on particular time, and that fresh water is not available on particular flood time and disaster time. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Hemanta. Can I request one of the original team, I would say one of the pioneers on this discussion around water, Ravindranath, please, if you would be.
Mrinal, yeah, groundwater, of course, we have practiced, we have started practicing since 1972. Long back story of built by others also, but ultimately I joined in 80s on groundwater side. And then we realized that exploitation of groundwater is not good. We already installed by that time 10,000 hand pumps and well altogether. But then we focused on rainwater harvesting. Until now, rainwater harvesting is going on. Wherever is very, very dry area, then our parent organization is working on rainwater harvesting. Yeah. This is, I am talking about Social Worker Research Center, Tilonia.
But Ravi,
the past experience of, yes.
I think this rainwater thing is, I think Gunray and everybody, I think some of the comments that also have come in is that rainwater is good when the rain is there. But what happens when the rain is over? And that is one issue. The issue that I found is that people don't have the capacity to store rainwater, like maybe 1,000 liter max, 2,000 liter max. But the bit, you know,
there are solutions for everything. I'll explain you, Ram. What happens, you have to calculate your roof water, then you have to take the 10 years data of your rainfall in the area. So you know exactly how much is the quantity of water you can harvest this year. So suppose it is 1 lakh liter or 2 lakh liter. So you can make an underground tank. Underground tank is a concrete tank which will be linked to your roof. After filtering the effluents and other dirty things from the roof, first of the rain you have
fine.
to.
I mean those are really available material to, you know, kind of. But I want to, but I don't have the money to do it. Right? Underground water tank is huge.
That is a bit costly. It is nearly 6 rupees per liter.
So
I
think the cost factor is important. The people don't have the money to do that. Even to buy
No, you have to see, always making an underground tank is cheaper than making an overground tank. So now if you go to Fiji, in a country like Fiji, they are making bamboo cement tank, which is overground of 25,000 liters. They're made out of bamboo and cement work. So, area specific it is, but in Rajasthan and Gujarat and Maharashtra, people have adopted to groundwater tank. I mean, underground tank. So that is quite good. Even up to 5 lakh liter, 10 lakh liter people have made. And they just cover the tank and fix a hand pump on the tank. And they just pump the water whenever they want.
Thanks, Ravi.
I just want to just flag one issue on the related to what they are discussing. One is that the groundwater table harvesting is also another way. By the rainwater, we can harvest, we can recharge our groundwater table as well. If we define it properly in the geological term and make some water harvesting structure at different points, then we can also do the groundwater recharge as well. So it could also be very useful at places.
Thanks. Point made, Arif. Someone's got his hands up. I think it's Dito Sakya from NEEDS, right? This will be the last intervention. I think because we are almost running out of time. We've got just about 2 minutes left. I've got to give it to Dito, and I think Mirza is there as well. So these are the two persons that will try to who speak, and then we'll try to close this discussion, please. But thank you so much, Ram, Ravi, and Arif, because you were triggering a discussion on a very critical point out here, right? I think we need to have these debates, and we need to debate them, and we'll definitely find an opportunity in one of these meetings, webinars that we're having for that, right? And so we'll take Data and then Mirza, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. And thanks to Northeast Water Talk for taking this great initiative of discussion. It was really great to hear from all the speakers from their experiences and the draft stories. What we realize is that, sir, like water used to be our right, but now water it becomes a commodity. So why it's become commodity? Like all these things are connected to development aggression, the extractive development push that is by the state or by the other agencies like international financial institutions. Like you were saying, World Bank, and also Brother Ram is citing about ADB, the expansion of highways in Manipur. And also like in Assam, we all know how World Bank is investing in agribusiness project, like in ASAP or in APART, in different sectors like agriculture, then water conservation, then horticulture. All these tools actually, these are all extractive development models, what we observe, and it is really harming, destroying the whole water body or water ecology in the system, in the planet where we are living. So like all these models, all these things, not only actually harming the water system, it is also undermining people's rights, causing environmental damage, And also the serious thing is like they're promoting the corporate agenda. The Act East policy is pushing Northeast to be the finest economic corridor to connect all the South Asian countries. But the whole thing is undermining people's rights for the people living in this region. We have all, so these are all connected problems. Maybe like, sir, we talk many a times about community-based disaster risk mitigation system, community-based climate preparedness. We talk about community-based development process. So in this model, if we can think of like how we can build a community-based water safeguard policy at the community level, involving community at the grassroots. So will that work in this in this small initiative at this level? Can we think of this? And is water Northeast Water Talk can take up this great initiative in maybe some selected areas where we can intervene and we can involve community to frame the water safeguard policy, so that where they will talk about water issues, where we will learn collectively how we can utilize water, how we can teach children and youth, how we can conserve water, how we can consume water and all. This is a short reflection from out of all the discussions we listen from all the speakers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrinal. I just wanted to, this is a very good initiative, and also it underlines the transboundary scale that we have to look at within Northeast India, as well as the larger geographical region. And I think these water stories are excellently, poised to take that cross-cultural understanding as well as about water, as well as underscoring this transboundary scale, which is very important for our collective understanding. I think this will go forward with other stories coming in, and I think it will be all like a river, conversing at some point. So that is what is basically important initiative, and therefore I think I look forward towards hearing more stories in the coming sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else, please? If not, I think we can close the discussion here for today, and we can come back next Saturday, or at least when the key, organizers get back to all of us and say, would raise the flag and say we need to have more stories coming up, right? Thank you so much, everyone. I think, as Mirza had mentioned, it's like, I think we're flagging off a lot of very critical issues. All the three speakers, raised very interesting stories, flagged off issues, and I think there's still a lot more stories to be touched on. And as Mirza was saying, I think at some point of time, I think it also provokes us to kind of ask questions from ourselves, right? And as to what we want to do beyond these stories. I think we need to start thinking at some point of time. I think civil society in the last couple of years at least, or maybe a little more, has perhaps got a little overwhelmed by the kind of assault and an onslaught of, shall we say, an onslaught from corporates, particularly, and governments who are trying to push that particular agenda of growth on all of us. So what should we really do? I mean, okay, stories, but beyond stories, what do we do? I think it's also a question that's been posed of us. But we leave that discussion to some other time. And what we're discussing today are all very critical. They connect at some point of time. So thank you very much. I think we can close discussion for today.